You know that feeling, right? That sinking feeling you get when another big report on institutional racism comes out? It lays out the same problems we've been hearing about for years, but deep down you know nothing's really going to change. Well, today we're going to look at a new framework that's designed to finally break that cycle.
Here we go again. I mean, that phrase just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures that deep cynicism, that review fatigue so many people feel. Take the recent Met Police report. It was a textbook case. It laid out 30 different patterns of harm, and the collective response was basically a shrug. It's the same old story: outrage, review, recommendations, and then nothing.
But, this latest report on the Met Police actually did something a little different. It wasn't just about isolated incidents. It was a forensic, structural review that identified these deeply embedded patterns of harm. And in doing so, it finally officially confirmed what so many people have known and have been experiencing for years.
And we're talking about some really specific stuff here. Things like racial gatekeeping that actively blocks promotions and messes with disciplinary actions, or weaponized whiteness, which is a powerful way of saying the system's own rules and norms are used against people of color. And of course, a widespread culture of indifference, gaslighting, and just straight-up deflection whenever racism is called out. Let's be clear, these aren't bugs in the system. They're features.
And that right there leads us to the million-dollar question. If we can see the problems so clearly, if we can name them report after report, why are these systems so incredibly resistant to change? Why do we always end up right back where we started?
Okay, so to answer that, we're going to bring in a really powerful diagnostic tool. It's called the 6 Stages Framework, or SSF for short. Now, this isn't just another academic theory. It's a really practical way to map out an institution's actual behavior so we can finally understand why all our efforts to create change keep hitting a brick wall.
The easiest way to think about the SSF is to picture it like a map. It plots where an organization is on a continuum, a spectrum that runs all the way from stage -5, which is like hostile denial of racism, all the way up to stage +3 and beyond, which is where real, courageous systemic change happens. This helps us get a precise diagnosis, moving beyond vague labels to see exactly where an institution is stuck.
So let's apply this to the Met Police. The analysis puts them squarely between stages -4 and -2. Okay, so what does that mean? Stage -4 is all about denial, defensiveness, and gaslighting. Stage -2 is more about performative gestures, saying the right things but really just trying to protect the institution's reputation. And here is the absolute kicker. The analysis shows the system itself actively rewards people for this resistance, while it punishes those who are actually trying to push for equity.
And this brings us right to the heart of the problem. For decades, we've been trying to fix a ship that has its engine stuck in full-blown reverse. We pour all this energy into an institution that is actively fighting against change. So the SSF suggests a pretty radical shift in strategy. Stop trying to fix the broken ship. Instead, start building lighthouses, brand new, independent structures that can actually model what justice looks like and show everyone else the way.
Now, I know that diagnosis might sound a bit bleak, but here's the thing. It's actually the opposite. Because by understanding exactly where and why the system is stuck, we can finally move out of this place of despair and into one of clear, actionable strategy. And that's really the magic of this whole thing. The framework doesn't just point out the problem and leave us hanging, it offers a concrete solution. 6 distinct, strategic pathways designed to finally, for good, break this exhausting cycle of failure. So let's do it. Let's walk through these 6 action pathways. Think of this next part as a practical guide for turning all this analysis into real, on-the-ground action.
All right, here they are at a glance. Number 1, shift the target. 2, build new structures. 3, hold leaders accountable. 4, reframe the narrative. 5, name the cost. And finally, number 6, maintain hope through strategy. Let's break down exactly what each of those means.
Okay, pathway 1 is all about being smart with where we put our energy. Look, instead of wasting time trying to convince the most hostile opponents, the people who are dug in at stage -4, the idea is to shift our focus. We target the indifferent or complicit majority, the people hovering around stages -2 and -3. They are the real front line of change. If you can shift them, you create unstoppable momentum.
Pathway 2 is based on a really simple but powerful truth. You just can't ask a system that is fundamentally designed to resist change to reform itself. It's not going to happen. So the strategy here is to build new, independent, Black-led accountability structures. These are the lighthouses we were talking about, things that can model what real justice and accountability look like from the outside in.
Pathway 3 zeroes in on leadership. It says we need to move way beyond generic diversity training. Instead, we should use the SSF to assess leaders on what really matters, how they actually respond to feedback and challenge, their emotional maturity, and their real capacity to lead structural change. And here's the key. Their promotion should depend on their ability to show progress through these stages.
Now, Pathway 4 is a huge shift in how we think about this. It argues we should stop pouring all of our collective public energy into trying to fix this one failing institution. Instead, we should redirect that energy toward empowering our own communities, building up our own skills, language, and courage to demand accountability and create real alternatives for ourselves.
Pathway 5 demands a totally different kind of accountability. It says it's not enough to just talk about policy failures and procedural screw-ups. We have to name the profound, deep human cost of these systems, the loss of trust, the destruction of safety, the damage to our collective humanity. Making that cost real and visible is an incredibly powerful driver for change.
And that brings us to the final pathway, number 6, which is all about hope. It argues that hope isn't some passive, fuzzy feeling that we just wait around for. No, it's a discipline. It's something we practice. And you know what fuels that discipline? Having a clear, actionable strategy. Knowing what to do next. That's what keeps hope alive, even when the challenges seem overwhelming.
So when you put it all together, you can see that the 6 stages framework isn't just a list of things to do. It's a tool to fundamentally change the entire conversation around systemic racism. It's about moving us away from wishful thinking and passive optimism and toward active, intelligent strategy. Just look at how it reframes everything. Instead of asking, how do we feel better, we start asking, what are we building instead? Instead of asking, how do we reform them, the question becomes, how do we replace, resist, and reimagine? See the shift? These questions are all about agency, about power, about creation. So let's just quickly recap the key takeaways. The big insight is that we're stuck in a cycle of review and denial. The new strategy? Stop feeding those resistant, stage 4 systems our energy. We recognize the system can't police itself, so we build parallel structures of justice. And we finally understand that real change isn't going to come from the top, it's going to come from mobilizing people in the middle. That right there is the path from hopelessness to real strategy.
And so this whole framework leaves us with one last really powerful question. It turns the focus away from them and puts it squarely back on us. This isn't just about what's broken anymore. It's about what we, with our energy and our new strategy, are going to create. So the question is, what are you building instead?